The Last Man on Earth, full movie recap. What would you do if you were the last person left on Earth? No family, no friends, no rules, no consequences. At first, it might sound like a dream, but for Phil Miller, it quickly turns into a nightmare. A deadly virus has wiped out almost all of humanity, leaving Phil completely alone in a silent and abandoned world. For years, he travels across America, searching for other survivors. Every time he visits a city, he marks it off on his map. He leaves messages behind, hoping someone somewhere will read them and come find him. But every city tells the same story. Empty streets, abandoned buildings, and not a single human being in sight. Eventually, Phil settles in Tucson, Arizona. Since there are no laws anymore, he claims the biggest mansion in town and fills it with expensive paintings, sports cars, jewelry, and anything else he wants. At first, life seems perfect, but loneliness is a cruel enemy. To cope with isolation, Phil draws faces on footballs and begins treating them like real friends. He talks to them, argues with them, and even celebrates special occasions with them. Months pass, then years, and the loneliness becomes unbearable. One day, Phil finally reaches his breaking point. Convinced that life has no purpose anymore, he drives toward a cliff, planning to end everything. But just before it's too late, he notices something unusual in the distance. Smoke. Someone started a fire, which means one thing. Another human being is alive. Suddenly, Phil has a reason to live again. He races toward the source of the smoke. When he arrives, he finds clothes hanging outside. His heart begins pounding. For years, he's dreamed about meeting another survivor, maybe even a beautiful woman. Overwhelmed with excitement, he actually passes out. When he wakes up, he discovers the truth. The survivor isn't the young woman he imagined. It's Carol, a middle-aged woman who found one of Phil's messages and came looking for him. Although Phil is disappointed, Carol is thrilled to discover she's not alone anymore. The two move into neighboring houses, but living together quickly becomes a challenge. Carol believes rules, responsibility, and morality still matter. Phil thinks none of those things matter anymore because civilization is gone. Every day turns into another argument. Carol cleans. Phil makes a mess. Carol follows principles. Phil follows impulses. They couldn't be more different. Yet despite their differences, they slowly start depending on each other. One evening, Carol suggests something serious. If humanity is going to survive, they need to have children and rebuild civilization. Phil likes the idea immediately, but Carol insists on doing things properly. She wants to get married first. Reluctantly, Phil agrees. Using an old church and a recorded wedding ceremony, the two get married. But even after the wedding, Phil isn't truly happy. Deep down, he still dreams about finding someone younger and more attractive. And then, his dream suddenly becomes reality. One day, while driving, Phil and Carol encounter another survivor. Her name is Melissa. She's beautiful, young, and everything Phil ever imagined. The moment he sees her, he becomes completely obsessed. For the first time since the apocalypse, Phil believes he has a second chance at happiness. Unfortunately for him, Melissa quickly learns that he's already married. And unlike Phil, she respects that fact. Still, Phil refuses to give up. He starts shaving, exercising, and trying to impress Melissa at every opportunity. But no matter what he does, Melissa remains uninterested. Then things get even worse. Another survivor arrives. His name is Todd. Todd is kind, honest, and genuinely caring. Everything Phil isn't. Almost immediately, Melissa and Todd start getting closer. Phil watches helplessly as the woman he desires falls for another man. Jealousy begins consuming him. He constantly tries to sabotage Todd. He mocks him, insults him, and attempts to make him look bad in front of everyone. But every plan backfires. Instead of embarrassing Todd, Phil only makes himself look worse. The more Phil schemes, the more everyone appreciates Todd. Eventually, Melissa and Todd become a couple. Phil is devastated. The future he imagined completely falls apart. But his bad behavior doesn't stop. In fact, it gets worse. More survivors begin arriving. Soon, what was once a lonely world starts feeling like a small community. Unfortunately, Phil continues lying, manipulating people, and creating problems. The group slowly loses trust in him. Then another survivor appears, and this changes everything. His name is Phil Miller too. To avoid confusion, everyone calls him Miller. Unlike the original Phil, Miller is handsome, intelligent, hardworking, and respected. He fixes problems, builds useful inventions, helps everyone around him. Within days, the entire group loves him. And that's exactly what drives Phil crazy. For the first time, he's no longer the center of attention. Even worse, Carol starts spending more time with Miller. The woman Phil once took for granted now seems happier around someone else. And that's when Phil finally realizes something important. He actually loves Carol. The person he spent months complaining about was the one person who never abandoned him. The one person who always believed in him. The one person who stood by his side when nobody else existed. Desperate to win her back, Phil tries everything. But after all his lies and selfish behavior, Carol no longer trusts him. Meanwhile, Miller becomes the community's unofficial leader. Everyone respects him. Everyone listens to him. Everyone prefers him over Phil. The jealousy becomes unbearable. Eventually, Phil intentionally destroys one of Miller's inventions in front of everyone. This is the final straw. The group decides they've had enough. Miller announces that Phil must leave. Nobody objects. For the first time, Phil realizes just how far he has fallen. Soon afterward, the group tricks him and forcibly exiles him from the community. Miller drives him far into the desert and leaves him there with only a few days' worth of supplies. Phil is completely alone again, just like he was in the beginning, but this time feels different. Now he understands what he lost. He misses Carol, he misses the community, and he regrets nearly every selfish decision he made. Days later, just as hope begins fading, a familiar vehicle appears. It's Carol. She couldn't abandon him. Carol reveals that she finally sees Miller's darker side. And despite everything that happened, she still cares about Phil. For the first time in a very long time, Phil stops thinking only about himself. He sincerely apologizes. He admits his mistakes and finally takes responsibility for his actions. Together, Phil and Carol decide to leave the past behind. As they drive into the unknown, they aren't searching for a perfect future. They're simply choosing to face whatever comes next together. And in a world that nearly lost all of humanity, sometimes that's enough. That's where this incredible story comes to an end. A hilarious, emotional, and surprisingly heartfelt tale about loneliness, jealousy, second chances, and discovering what truly matters before it's too late. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more amazing movie recaps.